What's up, guys? Welcome to Q&A Mondays. I'm Thad Barnett. We're back with another steel market update here in mid to early October 2024. I've got Adam Mazzella from Sheffield Metals here. Thanks for being here, Adam.
Absolutely.
What are the recent events that have been happening in the steel market?
So a lot of the domestic steel mills have filed suit with the federal government to initiate an investigation with the ITC, the International Trade Commission. What that is you go wide and they say, hey, we want to investigate all of these countries for basically potentially detrimental business practices for selling corrosion-resistant steel products into the United States.
Okay, so the events that have happened so far are for like coated steel, things like that. What about bare steel? Any other products that have been impacted?
At this point, they're just announcing it as corrosion-resistant steel products. So in our world, that's Galvalume, galvanized. You're not going to see cold-rolled, hot-rolled aluminum products, copper products. I think a lot of different products are impacted by different phases of investigations and different markets, but at this point, it's just corrosion-resistant steel products.
Okay, and if you're paying attention to the news, some of the terms that you might hear in regards to these investigations are anti-dumping and countervailing. So can you explain those two terms for me?
Sure. So ultimately, this is instigated because the domestic mills are saying unfair business practices, meaning we're competing with products that are landing on our shore that are less than what they should be.
Pricing-wise.
Yes. So they feel that they're lowering the market. So anti-dumping would be a country or a mill of origin in another country essentially just dumping steel. You may have a glut of steel, you may have excess capacity, you may just be trying to keep the steel mill running. So you're exporting at a price and dumping steel to otherwise keep the engine going. Countervailing is you're receiving subsidies from a government or from an entity. So this would be like producing steel that would cost me maybe 40 cents a pound. I might be able to produce it at 45 cents a pound, but the government might be making up that spread. So I can continue to produce and otherwise would not be competitive, but I'm being subsidized financially to go be competitive.
So that import steel would then have artificially low prices.
Correct. So they could arrive to the United States at a more competitive number than what would otherwise be available in the United States.
So in the course of the investigation by the DOC, the ITC, what are some things that could happen? What could the results be?
So what we've seen in the past, we saw this similar situation in 2018. So typically they cast a wide net. And so if you look at the list of countries included, there's an abundance of countries included in this. I would say most of these countries are really solid trade partners with the United States. I think some of these will be excluded, and they'll take a look at it and look at the seriousness of the charge. If they identify that they were dumping or countervailing, they'll take a look at how it was done, who did it, and kind of how it made its way here. Certainly, if they don't find anything, they're not going to inflict penalties on somebody. But the thing that you need to be weary of over the next 3 to 6 to 12 months as this investigation is going on, domestic U.S. companies aren't going to want to go and do business with these countries that are listed. So it's certainly going to restrict the import capacity coming in just because of the unknown. If they find that one of these countries was liable for anti-dumping or countervailing, they could assess tariffs on this. So to equalize it or penalize them. So if you need to buy 1 million pounds of Galvalume and you get it at a reasonably competitive rate compared to your domestic rate today, and they say, hey, this country was at fault or at penalty, and we're going to slap a 25% tariff on there, you now have steel that is 25% above market. And so there's a lot of potential risk associated with this. So there's a mad dash right now for everybody to get all their coated steel in right now. And then after that mad dash, it's probably going to be pretty slow and pretty quiet on the import front, with the exception of countries that are not on this list.
Okay. So let's talk about some of the short-term and long-term impacts here. Obviously, when news like this comes out, that's going to have an impact on the steel market right away, just for the uncertainty aspect.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about what has happened in the short term, and then long term, what could possibly happen if one of these countries has tariffs imposed on the imports?
Not having a crystal ball, what we saw almost immediately was a 10 to 15% jump just in bare coated steel prices. Other things that impact our world are appliance and automotive, as well as other construction products. So while demand isn't off the charts right now in any of those things in the U.S., I would say we are preparing for additional capacity to come online over the next 12 to 18 months in the U.S. So that could help from prices completely exploding through the roof. In 2018, we saw that number escalate pretty significantly. We went up 10 to 15 cents a pound almost overnight in that first week, as I mentioned. So we're hoping that it sort of caps there. We hope we find stability. We're always seeking stability, but when we're not, we want to make sure we're communicating out to the market about what is happening.
Okay. So there's other economic factors involved, not just the anti-dumping and countervailing.
Yes. So, the more capacity coming online, how other, what the demand is for other products in the market, et cetera.
I think the big question on everybody's mind is pricing for the steel market, coated steel. What do you kind of want to tell everybody when it comes to what they should be considering there with steel pricing?
Sure. I mean, we tell our customers to protect their bids regardless. So should there be a shock to the market, which we are sort of experiencing that, there is a shock going on in the market, protect your bids. Whether it's 3 months out, 6 months out, protect your bids. If there's any proceeds, that might be something that you can pass along to your customers should the market not escalate. But you want to make sure you protect your bids. Don't extend how long it's good for, past 30, 60, 90 days, or put pricing provisions in there to account for where the market goes. So, be transparent on your bid. Say, hey, this is based off of steel costing me this much. You're going to capture anything above and beyond that.
Yep. Now, we are at Sheffield Metals always going to give customers sufficient information about a price increase. So tell me a little bit about how important it is to stay close to your supplier at all times.
Absolutely. So we don't like to pass along a price increase without, a minimum 30-day notice. So whether you're buying off of us, whether you're buying off of a competitor, make sure that you're in communication with your rep, your supplier. You don't want to get burned. You don't want to absorb the spread because of geopolitical things happening in the world out there. And I would imagine that you're going to get good current real-time information from your rep, whether the price is going up or down.
So another thing when it comes to hearing news like this or that uncertainty in the market, what's your advice when it comes to managing emotions in a time like this? As someone who is a business owner, you're managing your supply or bidding. Tell me about that.
Business cycles have been up and down. And I think, even prior to, 2020, for the last 6 years, sort of the flavor of the week has been volatility, Thad. It's since 2018, 232. It's been up and down and all of the events in the world that have happened from then. So you don't want to overextend yourself on the buy side. And I think right now the market's at a relatively low point. So there could be opportunities for strategic buys, but again, not knowing what's going to happen tomorrow with things geopolitically. You got a lot of wars ramping up. You got potential strikes happening. To me, the best thing you could do is buy what you need when you need it. We're going to be here for you. We try to run our business the same way. We want to make sure we don't get overextended and try to ensure that our customers can stay secure with our business as well. And be conservative about how we handle things.
Yeah, I think it's important to remember too that this has happened before.
Yeah.
And so if you align yourself with a partner that has been through that, a supplier that's been through that, and and you trust their business practices and things like that, that's super important because they can help you throughout and answer questions for you and give you that advice when you need it. All right. Well, thanks so much, Adam. I really appreciate the info.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me, Thad.
Yep. If you have any questions, comment down below or reach out to your Sheffield Metal sales rep. Thanks for tuning in here to the Metal Roofing channel. Subscribe if you haven't already. As always, I'm Thad Barnett. We'll catch you next time.